everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood sax man Alex here. If you haven't already, watch my get to know me videos and review videos I have up there. The semester for me has just started and I'm really excited with the new classes and the new teachers I have for the semester. As promised, I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey to New York City. Ever since I was a little kid, I loved the Big Apple. It was one of the things that I loved the most. I think architecturally, it was a marvel for me just to see the different types of buildings and the different types of eras that New York went through. And I always heard that a jazz musician's home is in New York, which is what brought me to here. So before I moved to New York, I was studying at Berklee College of Music and I was in my 5th year, ready to move. My fiance and I were looking months before trying to see what places we could get in the city, in Brooklyn, in Queens, but wherever it would be, it'd have to be in New York City. Berklee's scheduling for the graduation and the last day of school were really crunched together. The last day of school was on Friday, which also happened to be on Berklee's graduation concert. My fiance was playing in it, so she was rushing to get to it right after school. The ceremony was the next day at 8 a.m., so we were from concert mode to graduation mode. We had to get everything ready, the robes and all the, fancy gear. The graduation was awesome. Got my diploma in my hand, even though it wasn't there. Walked off the stage, and hours later, we got in a car, went to New York City the same day. We got there about 4.5 hours later. It was nighttime. I think it was about 11 at night. Checked into the hotel. We were in Jersey City at the time, so we hadn't really been in the city just yet. Our plan was to rest when we got to the hotel, and the next day, we were going to meet with a realtor because she had some really nice apartments in mind for us. We were all excited, we were tired, the drive was super long, there was traffic going out of Boston and into New York City. We were super excited the next day, we were like, alright, let's do this. We're gonna go tour New York City, we're gonna get some nice food, we're gonna look at apartments, we're gonna finalize one that we really like. And then the next day happened. You know how I complain about the NYC humidity? Well, it was Mother's Day, it was raining.
That's a wind gust right there. Well, that's a wind gust.
There was, I'd have to say, 70, 80 km/h winds. It was terrible. Not only were we not in the city, but we had to cross New Jersey, New York state line, so that was kind of weird. We took an Uber there to the place, got to the meeting that we were going to have with the realtor, and then we walked around the city to look at apartments. So at first, the apartments weren't that great. We saw that they were in the middle of reconstructing the apartment. There was bad doors. The paint was like dripping down the ceiling. The appliances weren't great. But, it's New York, so that's kind of expected. We were looking all over the place in the city, and then we found the one that we loved. The apartment you see right now is the one that we chose. We loved it at first sight. Went in. Everybody agreed that this is the one that we had to get. And from there, we just signed the papers and boom, we are here in New York. And for me, it was a long time coming. I had wanted to move here ever since I was a little kid. Being in Florida in the suburbs, you can see the skies, but there weren't any skyscrapers. And I myself am a huge admirer of architecture and just city skylines in general. Very cool game, by the way. My fiance actually looked up some options for master's degrees and she stumbled upon NYU's program. And at the time, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to continue into a master's program or be a little bit more involved with the community first before going on to education again. So I applied, I got in, I got a scholarship, I was given a position at the university. I'm currently in my 2nd year of master's studying at NYU Steiner. NYU has been great. I've been able to study with amazing artists and I have the opportunity this semester to study personally with Chris Potter, which is amazing. Moving to New York definitely was a huge change for me. I grew up in the suburbs and I also grew up a little bit in Bogota in Colombia, but it definitely wasn't enough for me to really experience what living in a city was. And the fast pace that New York has really got me into shape, mentally and physically. You have to walk everywhere. If you don't need a metro, you just walk. Or you take a cab. My experiences as a musician in New York have been amazing. I debuted with my first gig at Birdland, which is awesome. And I've also played at Blue Note. I've gone to jams at the Zinc Bar and Smalls and Dizzy's, which are all amazing venues that any jazz musician that wants to should go there, check out the scene, and book gigs for them. I was super lucky to have gone here and moved to New York and immediately start my education in the master's at NYU. But for those of you who don't want to continue in a master's degree just yet, but still want to move to New York, show your face at every jam, at every gig, be there, always be present, always be showing up to people's gigs. They really appreciate that. Play as much as you can, network as much as you can. I cannot stress that enough. That is something that you need to do in order to get yourself ahead in your career. Something that you should avoid is just talking about yourself when you're networking, just asking people for things, and just being selfish in general. You always should be on time when you're asked to do rehearsals and gigs. You should always present yourself in a very appropriate manner. It's not just enough to just network and meet someone. You have to create a relationship here in New York. I feel that the community here is really big, but everybody knows each other, at least to some type of personal level, which is something that's really, really nice. And if you're just a person who just wants to network and climb over people and just, you know, be big for the sake of the fame, then New York isn't for you then. I've lived here for about 1.5 years now, and when things started shutting down due to the pandemic, things really changed. We had to stay in our apartment for prolonged periods of time. I think before I started going out again, it had to have been more than 100 days. We were tallying it on our calendar.
2,000 years later.
And it was kind of cramped in here, you know? It's a studio apartment. There's not really a lot that you can do in here. There's not a lot of space. It's nice, but you don't live in New York to live in your apartment. You live in New York to experience New York, and then you rest in your apartment, you go to sleep, then you go back out. The whole music industry is a social networking industry. You have to have a relationship with the other person, you know? Here in New York, I've gotten gigs because I know someone, but I know someone very well. I know how to joke with them. We have past relationships with each other. We've played with gigs with each other. So if you want to be a musician in New York, be famous as a jazz musician, then social network, get out as much as you can, build relationships, and I'm sure you're going to do fine. Thank you for watching the video, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow me on Instagram and Facebook for more beat videos, standards, and now ballads. Stay sexy. This is how I am.